Hello, good morning. I'm Michael McMullen. Welcome along to the last day of our June qualifying series for places in the China Open and Wuhan Open. And 4 days after these two had an extraordinary meeting, qualifying for the first of those events, Gary Wilson and Aaron Hill square up again, this time looking to claim a place in Wuhan. So best of 9 to set up a meeting with Ding Junhui or Liam Davies in the final stages. Well, what a match it was last Sunday. Aaron Hill had notice there, Jack Klosowski, just in shot. He's playing on the adjoining table against Yao Peng Cheng. A lot of very good players in action this morning. Former world champion Stuart Bingham among them. But here on the main table, Gary Wilson with an early chance. Dipped a bit in the rankings over the last couple of years. Not much more than 2 years ago, he was in the top 10 of the world rankings. Now down at 24. Of course, when there's a big ranking event on, you want to be there for the final stages. If Wilson was to miss the Wuhan Open, I think it would hurt particularly because he was one frame away from winning it last year. I have to say that's a bad miss. And a poor return, really, from what had developed into a half-decent chance. Aaron Hill, 24 years of age, 41 in the world. Was briefly one place higher than that earlier this year. Gary Wilson, by far the older of the two, turned 40 last summer. Aaron Hill, one of just 2 Republic of Ireland players on the tour now. The other is Leon Crowley. Of course, since the retirement of Ken Doherty recently, now no Dublin players on the tour. Hill and Crowley, both from Cork. Wilson, one of those players who, when he plays well, he plays really, really well. But he's not playing well so far this morning. And this is what can happen to him. He can start to get very down on himself, get a bit negative. He knows, as I was saying, how well he is capable of playing. So when it doesn't happen for him, sometimes the head can drop. He can start turning in on himself a bit. So Hill gets his first chance. I mentioned there are no Dublin players on the tour now. One of the best players ever to come out of Dublin, Fergal O'Brien. You may have noticed him there looking on. Developing a reputation as a coach now that he's retired from competition. And Hill, one of his charges. And there's Fergal, former British Open champion. Was a few balls away from winning the Masters a quarter of a century ago this year. The fourth time these two have played each other, and they've all been within the last 12 months. It was Wilson's birthday, in fact, the day he turned 40. He beat Hill in the Saudi Arabia Masters last year. Beat him again in the deciding frame. Wuhan on St. Patrick's Day. Having been 4-2 behind. Very high quality throughout from both players, and then a close decider. And of course Hill did get the better of Wilson for the first time 4 days ago. Finished last season with a disappointing defeat, really, to Judd Trump in the first round of the World Championship. Got off to a good start. He was 4-1 up. And Trump won 9 of the next 10 frames, and that was that. He's been busy since then. He's been on holiday with his wife, Robin, to Florida and the Caribbean. He also recently played in the UK Open Pool Championship in Brentwood. Of Britain's best 9-ball pool players.
$50. 60.
Has won one match already this season. Beat Stephen Hallworth in his first match in China Open qualifying before the defeat to Hill. match last Sunday may well have reminded him as he opens these up nicely. Of an extraordinary match he played himself against Chris Wakelin in the UK Championship some years ago when he was 4-0 down at the interval, and then, quite honestly, played about as good a run of 6 frames as anyone has ever produced. 6-4, finished with 4 centuries in a row. We're talking to him about it a while later, and in typical self-critical fashion, all he could talk about was the fact that the frame before that he'd had a good chance of a century and finished on 97. Sets really high standards for himself, and so often he lives up to them. And with that, he leaves Hill needing a couple of snookers. Well, 73 in it, 59 left, so it's 4 snookers required. As much as anything, though, he might just want to get to the table and knock a few balls in this opener. No way with Fergal watching. He's throwing the towel easily in any frame. Don't want to get a telling off from him at the interval. Fergal, of course, such a battler in his playing days. Relished the challenge of trying to get 4 snookers. Been an eventful summer for Aaron as well. He got engaged to Caitlin recently. Congratulations to them. Players in this situation, 1 red left, always hoping for that free ball. Could take care of 2 of the snookers they need effectively in points terms, but it's very rare. Did see a frame the other day, Anton Kazakov on this table in his win over Marco Fu. Needed 3 snookers in 1 frame and got them all. No free ball involved. He just managed to get 3 snookers pretty quickly. Still lost the frame, but as I say, won the match. Wilson really can get into such a rhythm. Talking about that Chris Wakelin match, we've seen that so many times. When he starts scoring heavily, he becomes unstoppable, and as much as anything, Hill is just delaying him, getting on with the next frame and trying to continue that rhythm after that half century. That should be that now. Well, they both missed a few early on, but once Gary Wilson got stuck in, he made a break of 53, and that has been the key to him taking the opening frame against Aaron Hill. Played so well on the way to the Wuhan final last year, Wilson. And played Zhao Gudong, and he led 8-6. First to 10. So Zhao needed to win 3 of the last 4 at that stage, and he did exactly that to retain his title. Matthew Selt has won the opening frame of his match against the former World Championship runner-up, Jack Jones. Apart from this match, all the others are still playing the first. Well, no prizes for guessing what country he's from. The shamrock there on his cuff. And if I'm not mistaken, that's actually a tattoo of the outline map of Ireland. Gary Wilson's got great memories of Ireland. That was where he won the World Under-21 Championship back in 2004. It was a really good field. Judd Trump, Mark Allen, and lots of other players who've gone on to have really good pro careers, but Wilson was actually head and shoulders above the rest of them overall. He was at a level with his all-round game, the tactical side, that nobody else in that tournament was anywhere close to.
What?
He's not bad at the long potting either. I think he's on this black. He's not so sure. Yeah, he was fine. This is exactly what Hill didn't want, the chance for Wilson to build some momentum after getting into a bit of a scoring stride in that previous frame. He's had well over 300 centuries since he turned pro in 2004. When you consider he had 7 years off the tour. It's a very impressive total.
$60. $22. $23.
Wonderful Welsh tones of John Palou calling the scores.
30.
Steeped in snooker, John. I believe he played 6-time world champion Ray Reardon in his younger days back in Wales.
31.
Two of the players who were in the field for that World Under-21 Championship that Wilson won 22 years ago were among the players he defeated on his way to the final in Wuhan last year. Good trump in the last 16. Mark Allen in the semis. He also had wins over Sean Murphy and John Higgins that week. So blue to bring up the half century for the second frame in a row. This is all about what he can do with the reds. Coming off 2 cushions and missed them completely. Now he's covered the blue spot. Can't go on the pink spot. So look at this.
Easier checking from here, John.
Right?
It'd be easier checking from here because you can see the spot.
Yeah. This is good from the black.
So it's got to be in a direct line. Let's say between the brown spot and the pink spot. They should all be lined up.
Thank you. 50.
No problem hitting the reds, but obviously would have liked to be in a position to play sort of safety, which could give Hill problems as he comes to the table. 2 half centuries already for Wilson. Talked about Wilson and his great pedigree as a junior and an amateur. Well, Hill had the same. The European under-18s twice and the European under-21 championship just before turning pro in 2020. Good red, his choice of colours. But much like Wilson a few minutes ago, it's all about whether he can get into those reds. Well, he's managed to flick one out. If he fancies it. Does have the angle. Nudge a few more out here. That's what he's done, but in doing so, he's lost his cue ball a bit. Well, if he gets on the black there, he becomes favourite for the frame. Given the way he'd nudged those reds into play. was always the sort of shot where the cue ball was liable to go astray a bit. Talked about Wilson's scoring prowess. And Hill made headlines last season by getting his first maximum as a pro and then getting another one 23 days later. Well, a bit needless, but no great damage done. Hill has played a match since that win over Wilson on Sunday. Liu Hao, his first match in this event, won 5-0, made a couple of centuries along the way. Just staying above ground. Again, if that goes in, more likely than not, Wilson wins the frame from there. It's Hill's fourth match already this season. He's won all of the previous three. Just mentioned the win over Liu. Also, of course, the match against Wilson. And prior to that, he'd beaten Hamad Mia 6-1 in his first match in the China Open. Seems to have found much more consistency over the last year or two, both in terms of results and performance. A bit of good fortune there. Now, what can he do with it? At very least, he can put Wilson in a tight spot. only just made it to the Crucible in that match against Trump at the end of last season. To a decider in the final qualifying round against Zhu Su. Made a century in it. So disappointed with the Trump match. Didn't even feel he'd played well early on to go into that 4-1 lead. So Hill with a chance to get back in here. At the moment, it looks more like a chance to get himself back into the frame rather than win it at this visit.
What?
He was known for a long time as a giant killer. Very early in his pro career, he faced Ronnie O'Sullivan on live television. Sullivan had just won the World Championship for the 6th time. And Hill won. Got huge attention for that back in Ireland, and he's just had such a reputation for beating big names, and kept coming undone against the sort of players he would have been expected to beat. But that's really changed, and he's started to win on a lot more regular basis. He's been in 3 ranking quarter-finals now. Yet to get any further than that.
Nine.
Been hard fought this. He's done well even to get as far as 21. And this is what he's been very good at from a very early stage of his career. Situations like this, winning close frames, finding a way. He hasn't found a way in this frame, at least not yet. Now, has he left the red on? That's what he's checking. We'll see for ourselves in a moment. Well, does that go past the yellow? Trying to cut it into left middle. No. He can be very attacking, but I think even for him that would have been pushing the boat out a bit too much. We will see many, many frames this season. A hinge on a battle on the last red. Here's one of them. It was a tough one. It was a good effort. But he's left the red on. Now, everything is about the brown.
White. Six.
Well, if he can get that far, brown won't be enough. He will need the blue, but the blue would be frame balls, so he would just need to leave himself an angle to be able to pot the blue. Wouldn't have to concern himself with anything beyond that.
Eight.
So Wilson's going to be coming back to the table anyway, so that's all academic.
I only have eight.
And went all in. It's turned out okay. He hasn't left the green on. How different it feels best of 9 compared to the best of 11 we had last week. 2-0 down a best of 11, you still feel there's plenty of time, but best of 9, you're basically then having to win 5 of the 7 remaining frames, so you're already under it a bit. That is the situation Hill is trying to avert here. Hill can get through to this green. It will be some effort to get on the brown from there.
Three.
He's made a good fist of it. How does he fancy this? does. And that was courageous. Playing it at that pace, he knew he was basically handing the frame away if he missed. But the reward, potentially an offer, was big. So, Aaron Hill is going to level. Well, maybe not. As Wilson will come back to the table, just needing one snooker. And that puts it to bed. So Gary Wilson got in first, made 50. Didn't land on a red. In fact, he missed the pack altogether, and he couldn't find a way across the line. Hill chipped away and eventually got it done. So Aaron Hill does level with Gary Wilson at 1 frame all. Now, Dave Gilbert has won the first couple of frames against Thailand's Noppon Sangkam. Breaks of 74 and 83. Jack Jones and Matthew Selt level at 1 all. Daniel Wells is 2-0 up on the former world champion Stuart Bingham. Wells scoring well too. 51 and 65 for him. Ryan Day's got a 2-0 lead over Elliot Slesser. He's just won the second on the black day. Peng Cheng has a 2-0 lead against Northern Ireland Open champion Jack Lazowski. Made a century in the first frame there, Yao. Yanda and Stephen Hallworth level at 1 all. Lee Pei Fan and Jackson Page still playing their first frame. All of these matches are to get through to the last 32.
Thank you. Third frame. Gary Wilson.
So Gary Wilson has made half centuries in both of the first 2 frames. He only won one of them, though. As we move into the third. Earlier that Hill's been in 3 ranking quarterfinals now, and it's 1 in each of the last 3 seasons. First of them actually came in this tournament 3 years ago. Well spotted and well executed. Plenty of angle here to come off the cushion and get into the reds. Which he's done at pace, and I think he's okay. I think he's on this one to the right corner.
8. Touching ball.
When Hill turned pro, the circuit had experienced a decade of real growth. Lots of tournaments, lots of opportunity. It wasn't like that when Wilson came onto the tour in 2004. He ended up dropping off after 2 years. He was then off the tour for 7 years. Generally, if someone's gone that long, you don't see them again. He was doing other jobs, working in a frozen food factory, driving a taxi. It's another disappointing miss for him, and I was saying earlier, the head can drop, the frustration can come in. We saw signs of it there as he left the table. Now, Hill hasn't got going in this match yet in a scoring sense. This is a decent chance. Even more so now. Lovely split.
8.
Mentioned his 3 ranking quarterfinals. The Wuhan Open, the first of those in 2023, was actually the closest he's come to getting to a semi. He played Wu Yize, and has gone on to big things since then, it's fair to say. He was 3-1 up at the interval. Later led 4-3, but lost the last 2 frames. The last of them with Wu making a decider. The following season got to the last 8. The German Masters. Beat Mark Williams along the way, adding to his giant-killing reputation, but was whitewashed by Zhao Guodong. And then last season in the English Open, lost 5-2 to Jack Jones in the quarters. Had 3 other last 16 appearances in ranking events last season. Indeed, Wuhan was one of them. Lost in a decider to Zhang Anda. So many players out there who are very capable of having a good run in a tournament. But making it in the pro game involves doing that on a regular basis. That's the level he's moved up to over the last couple of seasons. Did have to go back to Q school for a couple of years on tour, but got through it.
$35. $36.
Well, was playing it at pace, having to force the issue a bit. So that was always missable. With another good long red, Wilson gets back in.
Six.
I just needed to flick that red slightly differently. Have a pot onto middle. Oh, found another red to go at. Did well to pot it, but he knew, didn't he? The cue ball was heading into the middle pocket at the same time. That is about as good a pot as Hill has produced so far in this match. So 25 in front, but
Seven.
remaining reds awkwardly distributed. Picked out a good one there. Oh! Well, that would have given him a really good chance. But all you needed colour, red colour. And then one more red after that. Hooked in all the way. Hill's attempt at the red. Great work to bring that red into play. A lot more good work required if he's to have any chance of winning the frame this visit. Good angle on the pink though in terms of getting on one of these reds. The frame looks to hinge on the other red. don't know that he's played to leave himself a double here.
19.
Well, maybe a bit too close to the cushion to be thinking in those terms. So it was always more likely he was going to play that sort of shot. So, one red left. Hill leads by just 6. Catch the jaws of those middle pockets as the red did there. Pretty much anything can happen. That's turned out okay. Oh, but that hasn't for Wilson.
4 of him here.
Now, is the red going to pull up in time for Hill to have a chance at it? Yep. So, what an opportunity now for the young Irishman. In the last frame from well behind. Looked for a time as though he was in danger of losing this one from well in front. But it's all back in his hands now.
One.
He really should take this third frame. Well, this is not ideal. It needs all 3 ball colours. He's played quite a few good rest shots already today.
Five.
That's another one.
Eight.
Frame ball then. Yeah, and he was always going to be on the blue, so this one is done and dusted now.
Seventeen.
And with that, Aaron Hill leads for the first time in the match against Gary Wilson. 2 frames to 1. Daniel Wells continuing his good start to the morning. He now leads 3-0 against Stuart Bingham. Dave Gilbert up by the same score against Thailand's Nopon Sangkam. Jack Jones and Matthew Selt are level at 1-all. Jones has just made a century in the second frame. Ryan Day leading 2-1 against Elliot Slesser. And Yao Peng Cheng has won all of the first 3 frames against Jack Lazowski. Anda 2-1 up on Stephen Hallworth. Lee Pei Fan took that marathon opener against Jackson Page. They're just into the second frame. We, on the other hand, have just one more to go before the mid-session interval. We reached that stage of the last meeting just 4 days ago. Gary Wilson went to the interval leading 4-0.
Thank you.
Very different story today.
Aaron Hill.
Best he can do now is be level. Aaron Hill then leading for the first time in the match. Breaks off in the last frame before they have their 15-minute break. Was there even room for it to get past? It looked as though there just was. Red coming round the table to let Wilson in first in frame 4. He dropped to 24th in the world rankings. He's been a regular member of the top 16, not constantly, but for a lot of the time in recent years. He came into the new season 19th on the back of last season's points, so very good chance to get back into the 16. And that's become more and more significant over the last few years.
6.
In terms of the exemptions and the opportunities that being in the top 16 gets you. Well, he's looking at it like it may be ruled off, but when you play a shot that slowly, as he needed to, there's the danger it's not going to run entirely true. We need to factor these things in now. Has he left a red on for Hill? As I was saying, from Cork, the Republic of Ireland's second city. We've seen the balance of power shift a lot. It was all about Dublin back in the day, and Fergal O'Brien, who's watching on, telling you about the Dublin he grew up in and all the places there were to play snooker. Very few of them left now, and I think the value of property in Dublin has been a big part of that. Plenty of places to play in Cork, most notably the Crucible Club in the centre of Cork.
Hey.
It's a place which really reveres its sporting heroes. Likes of footballer Roy Keane, athlete Sonia O'Sullivan, Christy Ring, who is often cited as perhaps the greatest hurler of all time. Hill himself was a very good footballer in his younger days, and
16.
for a trial with Cork City. And when it didn't work out, that was really what made him turn to snooker. 14 at the time. And to think 4 years later he was beating Ronnie O'Sullivan on television. Someone's got a bunch of talent. You can work and work and work at your game and get yourself to that level over many, many years, but you can't really go from really starting to play to that level in 4 years without enormous natural talent. He's got a brilliant temperament as well, and I think we saw that in that O'Sullivan match. There were testing moments towards the end, but able to distance himself emotionally. Even when he did beat O'Sullivan that time, I think he handled it very well, took it in his stride. He's just never had the slightest bit of fear of any opponent. Beaten so many of the all-time greats.
36.
So this is now Hill's highest break of the match so far. Need to just give the other 5 reds bunched together a bit of a nudge. What to do. If this shot goes well, it should be his 3rd frame in a row. Is he on the red to left corner? But he always has that one to left middle. Very tricky tuning though. He's decided to go with this very testing cut. Yeah, and that's a lovely shot. Cue ball and red so close together there. Hard enough to judge the pot, but also the path of the cue ball after that. But he's done it absolutely perfectly. So this red and any colour, he will have only needed one chance to take this frame. O'Brien looking on, clearly very pleased with what he's seen at the moment. Spends a lot of time, Aaron Hill, up in County Antrim these days with the likes of Mark Allen, Jordan Brown. Liam Graham has actually been travelling there to work on his game as well.
75.
So Aaron Hill lost the first frame, but he's won all 3 since then, and with the highest break of the match so far, a 75, he takes a 3-1 lead over Gary Wilson to the mid-session interval. We'll have more for you in 15 minutes. Gary Wilson wasn't able to see off Aaron Hill from 4-0 up at the interval when they last met just 4 days ago. Now he's got to try to find a way of beating him, having resumed at 3-1 down. Hill only needed one scoring visit to take the last frame before the interval. The break of 75. By far the highest from either player so far. Away, Wilson has a chance. He's trying to get back into his rhythm here. Started with a couple of half centuries. You just wonder when he went into the reds on 50 in the second frame, it got even a slight nudge. Gone on to take the frame from there. We know what he's like when he gets a bit of momentum behind him. Could have been a very different situation by now.
14.
As I was saying, got to the final of this event last season. Was also a semi-finalist in the Jiang Grand Prix. Beat Ronnie O'Sullivan in a really high-quality quarter-final and lost 6-4 to Sean Murphy in the semis. And he was also quarter-finalist in Yushan towards the end of the season, playing really well and beating Zhao Xintong. 16, made 3 centuries against the then world champion.
30.
Was ended by Tep Chayon Nu, who went on to win the title.
31.
Tends to be very fluent and gets on with it. But I think it's noticeable today. He's playing even faster than usual. And it's the sort of thing a player might go away at the end of a season and say to himself, right, I'm going to just speed it up a little bit next season. Players always looking to try something a bit different just to make that little bit of a difference. Which in the end can make all the difference. But it's another disappointing miss, just as he looked to be getting into his stride. As far worse for him is he's left a good chance for Hill, who we saw in the last frame has now got his scoring boots on. Last season was a landmark campaign for Hill in a number of ways. First time he won over £100,000. Also made his debut in a Players' Series event. Got into the World Grand Prix. Well, Mark Selby just played so well against him and won 5-0. He's nudged a few reds. He certainly hasn't done anything easy. I think that's one thing he's really good at. Sometimes you feel that players just feel a little more pressure on them on what's a difficult shot anyway. They've got themselves out of position, but he just seems to shrug everything off straight away. Brown to middle. We'll bring him back to the Reds, which are all out in the open now. The obvious next target for him now is to get into the top 32. And in terms of points carried forward from last season, he started this campaign at number 32.
18.
I think who was the last Republic of Ireland player to join the top 32 for the first time, and off the top of my head, feels like it was probably Michael Judge, well over 20 years ago.
25. 26. 33.
Well, he's going to have to make a mistake here for Wilson to get back to the table in this fifth frame. Everything's there for the taking.
It's one
of those where he's just slipping out of prime position a bit, and that can build up over time, and eventually it catches up with you. He's still battling away, still at the table. It's not coming easily.
Quiet, please.
One remaining red is on to right middle, but it's one of those you want to be as close to it as you possibly can. So either he's going to attempt a double or settle for an 8-point lead. The double it is, or maybe a treble. Now, how's it going to finish? This could be a big moment in the match. Wilson had a great chance to win it in one visit. A disappointing miss on the red on 46. He'll look like he might only need one visit to come from behind and take it. Now Wilson comes onto the colours 2 behind, and really it should be his frame now.
6.
I was saying, Hill, just for the last few shots of that break, couldn't quite get the cue ball back under full control again and caught up with him in the end. Able to get on the last red direct.
50.
As a result, had to take on the double if he was to stay at the table. That has turned out to be his last shot. Gary Wilson then wins the frame on the pink. He really needed that one after losing the last three. As though he might lose that one as well, but he's taken it. Hill now just one in front, 3-2. So this qualifying for the Wuhan Open, which will be in August. China Open just before that. And there'll be two ranking events back-to-back in England. Soon after that, British Open starts in Cheltenham on the last day of August, and the day after it finishes, it'll be the English Open in Brentwood. And there's a Father's Day offer on all this week for all-day tickets for the first 3 days of those tournaments. Buy one and Dad comes free. So that will be available all the way through to Father's Day on Sunday. Dad147 is the code that you need. Now we have our first winner of the day. Yao Peng Cheng has defeated the Northern Ireland Open champion Jack Lisowski by 5 frames to 0 and played really well. Sizable breaks in every frame. Started with a century, finished with another one. Play Ronnie O'Sullivan in the last 32 in Wuhan, if O'Sullivan comes through his match against Ashley Carty. Feels like this is anyone's again now. Really good chance for Hill. Previous frame, everything was there for him. Just couldn't get close enough really to that last red. Really, the damage had been done a couple of shots earlier. Anyway, it all resulted in Wilson winning the frame. He's in first in the 6th. It's all part of the challenge of being a snooker professional now, adjusting to playing out in China. There are so many tournaments there and all sorts of challenges, the travel, the jet lag, the humidity, different feel that the tournaments have in China. And Wilson's been very good at it over the years. As I said, got to the final of this last season, and after 7 years off the tour, in only his 2nd season back on, he got to the final of the China Open. Heavily beaten by Mark Selby, who was world champion at the time. Took him 6 years to reach another ranking final, and this was a much closer one against Mark Williams at the British Open in this very venue. But back in the present day, he's had a lot of disappointing misses in this match, and that can go into that category as well.
Seven. Eight.
Every time I see Aaron Hill playing a pink to right middle, I think back to that big breakthrough win he had against O'Sullivan,
14.
European Masters 6 years ago. It was the defining moment of that gutsy break he made and the frame to get over the line. Really tough pink into the right middle, and went on from there to win the match. How's this turned out? Pretty good in terms of the reds.
21.
Needs to get the cue ball back out of that part of the table. Get up for the blue here. Not sure the pink is on to either corner. Well, possibly. Anyway, still got work to do. Or is he looking at one to the middle? I think this will get him onto the pink to the opposite middle. Yeah. He's looking very confident now. Every reason to be. He's up against someone he beat just a few days ago in remarkable circumstances. A couple of centuries in his last match. I think one thing Fergal O'Brien will really have instilled in him, among many things, is just how much work you've got to put in if you really want to make it. There's a feeling maybe Aaron a few years ago hadn't quite grasped that yet, the hours that you need to put in. In his prime, Fergal O'Brien used to practice for anything up to 10 hours a day. Player who just got so much out of his ability. He was a top 10 player in the world at one stage.
29.
Knew the black spot was available, so he was safe in holding the pink spot to retain position on the next red. He's got an angle here to create a bit of movement and maybe open this up a bit more. I think he's on the black. Now, it looks like pretty plain sailing from here.
47.
I just wonder if Wilson has been affected by what happened when they played the other day. He said he can get very down on himself and unable to get the job done from 4-0 up at the interval in a best of 11. I wonder if that in his head a bit today, because he hasn't really performed anything like the level we expect of him. Every time it's looked as though he might be getting into some rhythm, he's having a bad miss.
55.
This is now the third frame in a row that has made a half century. But he won't be going any further. Well, he'd done the hard work, developing it into a really good chance. And then he was just a few balls away from getting over the line. He's let Wilson off the hook. And how quickly the narrative could flip here, because all of a sudden Wilson could be back level.
Seven. 8.
It could be 3-all with some of the mistakes he's made. The positives to take from the chance that gives him. And really, from here, he should level.
14. 50. 22.
This really is as straightforward as you could ask for. Off in the blue means he arrives on the colours 14 behind. Needs them all.
30. 33. Thirty-seven. 42. 48.
So for the second frame in a row, Aaron Hill has made a 50-plus break and ended up losing the frame. Gary Wilson took the 5th on the pink. He's won the 6th on the black with that clearance of 55. And we're level at 3-all. Dave Gilbert is the latest winner, 5 frames to 1 against Noppon Sankam, and he's played really well in that one. Just closed it out there with a Break of 69 in the 6th frame. His opponent in the next round will be Williams, but we don't know which one because he'll play the winner between Mark and Robbie. Daniel Wells 4-0 up now against Stuart Bingham. Jack Jones has a 3-1 lead over Matthew Selt. Ryan Day 4-1 up on Elliot Slesser. Zhang Anda just ahead of Stephen Hallworth at 3-2, and Jackson Page leads Li Pei Fan, the former Scottish Open champion, 2-1. Meanwhile, a 2-time Scottish Open champion at the table, back on level terms, 3-all. Up out of that very quickly. That's a poor one. Consider not much would have had to have happened very differently in this match for Hill to have won it by now. If he'd got on the last red in frame 5, probably would have won that. He had the hard work done in the last frame before missing a red. I think this is the best sort of match you can have, where you get plenty of quality play, none of the frames get bogged down, and they both have a few mistakes in them. That makes for the most entertaining and compelling sort of contest of all. That's absolutely beautiful. Ordinarily, with Wilson, you would say this was a golden chance to get it won in one visit. He's just thrown in several unexpected lapses today. So hard to have that sort of confidence this time. But what we can say is it's a great chance to get back into the lead. All reds and blacks up until then, and with so many reds out in the open, you start thinking about maximums. He's one of only 10 players to have made half a dozen maximums in professional competition.
36.
By going up for the green, that chance is ended here. He's got more immediate concerns on his mind.
37.
Just a bit low on this. Does give him a good angle to bring out some more reds. In the end, he's just played a cannon. That's fine. Leaves himself on one to the middle and pretty close to the territory he was in a couple of frames ago. He had that unexpected miss. Ended up winning the frame anyway. Just losing his cue ball a bit here, and Well, this could be the end of this break. So it is very similar to a couple of frames ago. Looked to be in prime position. Broke down on 46. This time he's lost position on 45. And it would be interesting to talk to him after the match, because it does feel as though he's making a deliberate effort to play more quickly, but can't help feeling it's bringing one or two more mistakes into his game. Clearly didn't intend that.
Green ball.
Well, this is interesting. Fergal O'Brien looking on there, thinking, I didn't practice that. The roll in behind the yellow is just too tricky, really, trying to bridge over the green. Taking a more conventional route this time.
Side on hill. Right.
Made the contact, but that wasn't really the point. So Hill comes to the table, 44 behind. That's not great. Still got the brown over the left middle, but danger of losing his cue ball a bit. Decent chance he'll be on something, though. Unless he runs into the green, which was always the danger.
Five. Hill. Five.
And a chance that Hill has basically passed up. one landmark Hill wasn't able to tick off last season was getting a Crucible debut. Lost to Dave Gilbert in the final qualifying round, just as he had the previous year. He's one of the very best players on the tour now, who still hasn't made it to the Crucible. Wilson, of course, a Crucible regular in recent times and got to the semi-finals of the World Championship 7 years ago. Yeah, you have to say Hill has had the edge today in terms of some of the balls from distance that have been knocked in. So it's another chance for him, but a lot of work to do here. It's an awkward table in a number of ways.
Three.
Again, gets to the table, but leaves it again very quickly. So he's had a couple of opportunities now to get right back into this frame. May not get another one now. Oh, but he will. That's a terrible miss from Wilson. Never really threatened with it. Much as Hill will have been disappointed by how quickly he left the table on his last visit, I'll be very surprised by how quickly he's got back to it.
One.
I think the big difference for him the last couple of seasons has been his scoring. He's been very good at scrapping it out, finding a way to win frames and win matches. But to really get into the upper echelons, you've got to be a consistent scorer, and he's come a long way in that department in the last couple of years. 19 centuries last season, which was almost double
Six.
the most he'd ever made in the season before that.
Seven.
Very good at those sort of shots today. Screwing back at pace, using the rest. was a bit of a tester, given the pace he had to play it at. So Wilson returns to the table, 29 in front. Red takes it to 30. Pink will make that 36. So if you could just find one more red here from those two that are side by side near the left middle pocket, and that gets him over the line.
Seven.
Oh, and he really couldn't have been closer.
Seven.
So not there yet, but in a strong position, Wilson. 36 in front. Only two reds left. And the green on the side cushion. Wilson in the first frame of this match with a break of 53. It's the only time he's been in front. I think a more telling fact, really, about Hill's improved scoring prowess is not so much the centuries as the half centuries. A couple of seasons ago, he had 46 50-plus breaks in the campaign, but then it went up to 65, and then last season it was 83, so not far away from double what it had been only a couple of years earlier. It's an average of better than 1 in every 3 frames, which is much closer to the level you need to get to in terms of your scoring. Want to become a top 32 player, which is sort of the next bracket, as I was saying, that he's aiming to get into. And it's different skills he needs to call to the fore here. Remember, Wilson just needs one more ball. He's posed a question to Hill here. The fact that he doesn't need a colour could make a big difference here for Wilson. Just needs to drop this in. And he has. So Hill did get chances to come back into this frame. You wouldn't say, though, they were great chances. So I don't think he'll feel like he's thrown this frame away in any sense. And it isn't over yet. It's just one snooker needed. But he could have undone himself there. Doesn't look like he's going to get the colour off the last red. So that would be 3 snookers needed then. Yeah, had to try to pot it and force the issue. So Gary Wilson got in first with a break of 45. Aaron Hill had his chances to come back into it. None of them great, though. Chipped away at the lead a bit, but Gary Wilson has got over the line in the end. So he gets within one of victory. He leads 4-3. Latest winner is Ryan Day, beating Elliot Slesser 5-1. So the veteran Welshman is on his way to Wuhan. His projected opponent in that round will be Barry Hawkins. Don't yet know who Hawkins will have to beat to get to that stage. So playing for places in the last 32 here, but remember the top 16 all have their matches held over to the venue stage. Jack Jones, who's a former top 16 player, 3-1 up on Matthew Selt. Stuart Bingham has finally managed to get one on the board, but still a long way back for him. He trails Daniel Wells 4-1. It's 3-all between Zhang Anda and Stephen Hallworth. And Jackson Page and Li Pei Fan haven't made it to the interval yet. Page 2-1 up in that. And he needs a couple of snookers in the next frame, so looks as though they'll be returning at about 12:30 with a potential 5 frames still to play. So that's a classic case of a match that they have to come off and come back later. I think now this is one of those matches where whoever loses it is going to have a lot to be disappointed about. Wilson knows he's made quite a few errors at inopportune moments. And from Hill's point of view, been at least a couple of frames that he could have won. Slipped away from him. It's 3-1 up at the interval, the Corkman. But he's lost 3 in a row since then. So this is the last day of this qualifying series for these 2 big events coming up in China in August. And if Gary Wilson is going to make a push to get back in the top 16, which I'm saying he's got a good chance of doing this season, and to miss out on 2 big events right at the start of the campaign, must be like giving everyone else a bit of a head start. Always so much to play for these days. Being in the top 16, more important than it's been for a long time. Obviously it gets you into the Masters, the World, the UK and other events as well now. Of course everyone wants to be part of those Players Series events towards the end of the season, which you can only do on the basis of your performances in the months leading up to that. So Aaron Hill has already got a place in the China Open booked. If he's to stay on after that for the Wuhan Open, he's going to have to win the last 2 frames here. Another cracking red. He's had a few of them in this match. judged nicely. So Hill,
4.
the first chance in a frame that he absolutely has to win.
Ten.
This looks nice.
18.
After this match, it'll be almost 3 weeks before Hill plays again. Championship League ranking event starts here in Leicester next Monday, but he doesn't play until the very last day of the first phase.
Twenty-four.
It'll be the 8th of July. Group with Mitchell Mann,
25.
Dong Hao Hai, and the former world champion, Luca Brissell. Well, what a chance this is now.
32.
I've seen him have a couple of good frame-winning chances since the interval that he's managed to get over the line with. I'm not sure they were as good as this. There hasn't been a frame in the match yet where there was only one scoring visit. That's what Hill will have his eyes on now. Last two matches have both gone to deciders.
56.
Now it looks very likely that this one will as well.
57.
So red in colour, all he needs, and this has been a good effort. Lost 3 frames in a row since the interval, despite having 2 half-centuries in that time.
64.
But he knew the importance of capitalising on this chance, and he has. For the second time inside a week, these two are going to play the final frame.
72.
Hill with every chance here to make his third century already. His Wuhan Open qualifiers. 2 the other day against Liu Zhihao.
$85.
It's already the highest break of the match from either player.
86. $93.
A career best 19 centuries last season. This is his third already in the new campaign.
100.
It finishes at exactly 100, but it's job done for Aaron Hill. Got his chance in the 8th frame and made a century from it. After losing the last 3, he's taken that one. There will be just one more to decide who goes through to the Wuhan Open. Jack Jones now leading 3-2 against Matthew Selt. Daniel Wells on the brink of victory over Stuart Bingham. 1-4 before the interval. It's 4-1 now, but Wells is in play, leading by 47 with 4 reds left. Stephen Hallworth has a 4-3 lead over Zhang Anda, although Zhang is in play and very close to taking frame 8. They've finally made it to the interval in the match between Lei Pei Fan and Jackson Page. That one is level at 2-all. A real slog so far. Certainly couldn't say that about this match. It's never got bogged down at any point. Yes, they've both had unexpected misses, but I think that's added to the entertainment value of it. Been a lot of good scoring. Hill has knocked in some really good long balls. And with that century frame 8, he's forced a decider, which will be started by Wilson. Last year, Wilson was 1 frame away from winning the Wuhan Open. Right now, he's 1 frame away from not qualifying this time. It's another really good red from Hill, and it looks as though the cue ball is going to pull up in time. So a chance right at the start of this deciding frame. And just to say, it says 3 to Gary Wilson there, but obviously they should be on Aaron Hill's side. This is exactly what you want, isn't it? You've just made a century in the previous frame. You're in that scoring groove. You're going to pick up from there right at the start of the next frame, and That's exactly what he's doing.
Nineteen. 20.
So a big moment coming up here. Lovely angle to get into the reds. That's okay. Not sure he's on that one to the left
27.
corner, but even if he isn't, definitely a chance to the middle. How good is Aaron Hill going to feel if he could finish it off here and now? 3-1 up at the interval. I felt he'd had the chances to have the match won a couple of frames ago. Instead, he found himself 4-3 down. If he can finish it off by making back-to-back frames that he's won in a single visit, he will be absolutely buzzing coming away from this week of qualifiers. Prospect, if he does get through, of playing Ding Junhui when he gets to Wuhan, although Ding would have to beat Liam Davies first. Something special about playing Ding in his home country. So every chance now he's going to win this frame in a single visit as well. Because he leads by 61, this red will get him to match ball.
61.
It's his 5th break. Over 50 in the last 6 frames.
62.
Gary Wilson, so close to winning the Wuhan Open last year, but now right on the brink. Missing out on the trip altogether this time. This to leave Wilson needing a snooker. Oh, and just on the brink of victory. Not for the first time in the match. Hill has slipped up at a key moment. He already had 2 frames in this match that he's lost after making a 50 plus. Yeah, I think they've noticed now the issue with the scoring, all those points going on the wrong side. Just take a moment to turn around, and Hill could have done without this. Wants to get to the table. Trying to finish this off. It's a very straightforward switch. There's no question about what the score should actually be. Seems as though all the points are having to be removed manually from Wilson and then they'll be put on Hill's side. You don't need this, do you, in the middle of a deciding frame? Fergal O'Brien looking on there. Well, he's seen it all over the years. I remember once being at a match that he was playing in. I was doing the introductions in the arena, and as I was doing them, the referee tapped me on the shoulder to say he'd forgotten his gloves. And things got even more bizarre. Fergal's manager was sitting in the audience, and he noticed the table hadn't been brushed properly, so he took all the balls off the table, brushed it down, and put them back on himself while he was waiting. I should say that wasn't a World Snooker event. It was an exhibition tournament, but one with a very strong field. I'm not sure even Fergal will have seen this before. Deciding frame having to be suspended because the scores are the wrong way round. Well, it's all correct now, but
It's not a break anymore.
it is still not something that I think Hill will welcome at all. Is he going to take on this red for the match? If he is, you don't want to be having to sit there for 3 or 4 minutes thinking about it. You have to sympathise with him there. He's built up a bit of rhythm over the last 20 minutes or so with breaks of 100 and 62.
It's my shot.
Momentum just getting disturbed right before he took on the ball. Would have got him over the line. Marco Fu on this table the other day, twice attempt match ball. Simple red to middle and a more straightforward, sorry, a slightly more testing pink. Missed them both, and Anton Kazakov ended up coming back to beat him. Now, is this going to be a chance for Wilson as the red comes back up the table? Well, he cleared up with 55 a few frames ago. Take that frame on the black. Well, Hill wouldn't be the sort, I wouldn't think, to make a big deal out of it, but that was so unfortunate.
8.
He's got a chance to win the match, and his concentration is bound to have been affected by that delay. Well, perhaps the most talked about shot in snooker over the last few months has been one Irishman missing match ball black. The World Championship semi-final, Mark Allen. Is it going to be a case of another Irishman missing match ball black and ending up losing on this occasion? I have to say it's more likely than not now. What a match this has been, you have to say. It's been so entertaining and absorbing from start to finish. So many frames that have looked to be going one way and then gone the other.
32.
One thing you do have to say, although Hill was very unfortunate with that situation with the scoreboard,
38.
he already had his chance and really should have got it done.
40.
We've had 8 50-plus breaks in the match. Hill has made 5 of them. Wilson's had 3.
47.
There's another one. Blue gets Wilson within a couple of balls of his second clearance to win on the black in this match. Well, Aaron Hill was so close to victory. He made a century to force a decider. He led that decider by 62, but missed match ball black. He got another chance to win, but missed the red. Gary Wilson has cleared up with 65, and so 4 days after he lost from 4-0 up to Aaron Hill in the China Open qualifiers, he has beaten him 5-4 on the final black this time. Gary Wilson, last year's runner-up, is on his way back to the Wuhan Open, and he will play Ding Junhui or Liam Davies in the last 32. Well, what an exciting match that was. So much entertainment from start to finish. Aaron Hill is going to be so disappointed with the way it's ended for him. Gary Wilson then on his way to Wuhan, and it will be Stephen Maguire and Stan Moody next up on this main table in about an hour and 3/4 from now. Dave Hendon will be along to talk you through that. For now, though, the story is Gary Wilson has cleared up to beat Aaron Hill 5-4 on the final black.